Hey there. How are y'all today? Welcome on in Midlife Women. If you have gotten on a scale on a Monday morning and found that you are 2 pounds up and you're freaking out, this is for you. We're going to talk about what to do and exactly what not to do on a Monday morning when the scale doesn't say exactly what you think it should. And we have all been there. Am I right? Part of that comes from the unfortunate fact that most of us have been taught to weaponize the scale against ourselves. And that is one thing that I love to help people do is to learn to put the scale in the proper context. It is one and only one measure of success and health in a very big picture that has many, many other things that we could be tracking and following to see if we are, air quotes, succeeding on this health journey. So let me tell you, I got a call from a friend and she was a little concerned because the scale was up 2 pounds after a weekend of fun with friends. And even though we know in our brains that we did not put on 2 pounds of pure body fat in a 48-hour period, we can't help it. It's just this primitive thing of, I've got to get that number down. And I cannot tell you how personal that is for me. I completely get it. I have been dieting since I was 9 years old. 9. I remember my very first diet was the Scarsdale diet. Anyone else remember the Scarsdale diet? So, how do I know that you did not gain 2 pounds of pure, unadulterated body fat over the weekend? Because it would be a Herculean feat. Girl, we would have to put you in the ICU, drop a nasogastric tube, and just slam you with Ensure and margaritas and liquefied chips and guacamole all weekend in order for you to even come close to 2 pounds of actual body fat. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but it would not be by accident. It would take an unbelievable effort to gain 2 pounds of pure body fat. So there's this equation that's been floating around in the health and fitness world for quite some time. You've probably heard it that 1 pound of body fat equals about 3,500 calories. And honestly, that's a pretty old estimate or equation, and it's more or less been mostly debunked since then. We know that 1 pound of body fat for any single person changes daily. It may be 3,500 calories one day for me that I would have to eat. Another day, it might only be 2,000 calories. Another day, it might be 7,000 calories. There are so many moving parts that determine how much energy our body stores as body fat. So 3,500 is not perfect, but just toying around with it. Let's just use that number. You would have to eat like 10,000 extra calories every single day over what you normally eat for meals to sustain yourself. So, what is the cause of 2 pounds of body weight over the weekend? You accidentally won't gain 2 pounds of fat over the weekend. The most likely thing is that you've gained 2 pounds of water over the weekend. And you may be thinking to yourself, but I didn't drink that much water. Whenever we are off of our normal routine, especially on vacation, it is very common to accidentally consume more sodium than you normally would. And as you know, sodium causes water retention. So, yes, one possible cause and probable cause is increased sodium. Another is possibly more processed or even more carbohydrates in general than you're used to consuming. And carbohydrates will be stored as glycogen in our muscles, which is going to hold a little more water. The third thing is that it's very possible on vacation you weren't eating as much fiber as normal. And the average American can store anywhere from a quarter of a pound all the way up to almost a pound of food in their bowel that the body has not released on yet. So it could be half a pound of poop in your colon that you simply haven't eliminated yet. So the likelihood that this is 2 pounds of body fat is very, very small unless you were mainlining guacamole all weekend. Okay, here is what not to do. I want you to think back to how many times, if you're like me, you have hardcore committed to a new eating plan, a new diet. This is it. I'm never going to have to worry about it again if I can just pull this off, if I can just stick with this and get enough willpower to do it. And then invariably, we fall off and we have this thought, which may be what you have if you get on the scale on a Monday morning and you gain 2 pounds. These thoughts start to bounce around inside your head. I failed. I can't stick to this. I should have known that I couldn't do it. It's not working. And these types of thoughts kill health plans, the one that you are endeavoring to be on right now. These type of thoughts are part of all or nothing thinking. The story that your mind tells you about 2 pounds on the scale over a weekend blossoms into this entire character assassination of yourself, or an assassination of the plan or the approach that you were trying to work on, and you've decided that it's a fail. This is exactly what happens right before we begin to give up and say, oh, well, that one didn't work either. I'm going to have to now try something else because I knew I couldn't stick to this either. No, no, no. That is not what's happening at all. So the first thing that you should not do is tell yourself that you fell off the wagon, or use terminology like cheated. You cheated on your diet. One major mindset change that I started making, which really changed how I had weekends where I gained 2 pounds and then came back to my plan, was that instead of saying I fell off the wagon, I started telling myself and my clients, it's all the wagon. There is no on and off the wagon. I want to be a person who leads a pretty healthy, pretty routine, ritualistic life, maybe even boring during the week when it comes to what I'm eating and how my fitness is going, who can then go on a weekend with friends and have that be part of my wagon too, have that be part of my lifestyle, right? So when you stop telling yourself, I fell off the wagon, you start helping yourself unravel some of the perfectionism that is part of the fuel that makes us quit. So stop telling yourself you fell off. You didn't cheat. You had a weekend. That's it. That's what happened. And you gained some water. And now the next thing you're going to tell yourself is, that was fun. Now back to my regular scheduling. That's it. No guilt, no epic stories of failure or character assassination. Just, that was so fun. I'm so glad I had a great time with my friends. Do you see how there's no drama? It's just a number. And the story about it is that nothing has really gone wrong here. So try that on. Here's another thing that you're not going to do. You're not going to massively try to make up for your sins that you thought you committed over the weekend. So what that means is, if you're someone who doesn't normally fast, you're not going to start, today's it, I'm not going to feed myself, I'm going to deprive myself. That's actually a form of self-punishment, and it's pretty harmful to your overall weight loss efforts in the long run. You don't need to say, I don't deserve to eat breakfast or lunch or whatever today because of what I did on the weekend. That's messed up. It will definitely harm your efforts more than what you're going to do instead. And I'm about to tell you that. Finally, stay off the scale for a couple days. Nothing bad is going to happen if you just get back to your regularly scheduled programming and you give yourself credit for getting back to your regularly scheduled programming. That's the win, the show up muscle, not the number on the scale as the end all be all. Give it 48 hours of being back to your regularly scheduled programming before you hop back on the scale again. Make sense? Okay, here's what you are going to do. Imagine this. What if you get on the scale, you see 2 pounds up, and you have no drama, you have no anxiety. You go, oh, look at that. Little old me held on to some water this weekend. Isn't that sweet? Now back to my regularly scheduled programming. And here is a huge shift. Your message to yourself is, I am very much going to make sure that I get adequate today. Adequate what? Adequate water. Be sure you drink your normal water and then have a little more. Because it is true. You probably had a little more sodium this weekend than you planned, and it's not a bad idea to kind of flush that out. And also, if you drank a little this weekend, you might be dehydrated and you might feel a lot better if you are well hydrated. Second thing you're going to make sure you get plenty of is, I need to make sure that I get adequate protein today. I do believe that as postmenopausal women, especially if you are exercising with resistance training and trying to maintain or gain muscle, and if you are actively trying to lose weight and you're putting yourself in a calorie deficit, there is a chance that focusing a little more on adequate protein could do a couple things. It could help decrease your muscle loss, And it can also help you control your appetite during your weight loss efforts. So today, or in any time you think you have fallen off the wagon, instead of thinking about deprivation, be even more aware and nurturing yourself with about 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, which is a number that, if okay with your healthcare team and appropriate for you, has been shown to really help with fullness and appetite control. Third thing, fiber. I better make sure today that I get adequate fiber, not deprivation, unless you are already normally someone who fasts and then you go back to your regularly scheduled programming. So, fiber in the form of fiber rich plants. And if it's okay with your healthcare team and you've taken one in the past, it's a great day to have a fiber supplement. Because if you are carrying around any of those extra nourishing and fun foods that you had over the weekend and they're hanging out in your colon as poop and making the scale go up, that can help you do your normal reset back to your normal healthy lifestyle. Next thing you're going to make sure you get adequate is steps. So, steps and sunshine can go a long way to resetting you on a Monday after a weekend where you thought you cheated and fell off the wagon. And the final thing is, I am going to nurture myself with adequate sleep, because you may have eaten outside of what you normally eat over the weekend and you might have gotten less sleep or less movement and exercise. So on a Monday or after a time frame when you've gained a little bit of weight, reminding yourself that it would have taken a phenomenal effort for you to gain 2 pounds of true body fat over the weekend. This is water weight. And instead of deprivation and self punishment and drama around the scale, I'm going to stay off the scale a couple of days and I'm going to nurture myself with water, adequate protein, adequate fiber, some extra steps, and some sunshine, and a good night's sleep. Now, one of the most common things I hear all the time is, I just can't get started. I don't know where to start, or I can be healthy till noon and then I blow it and I'm off the rails. That's why I have a wonderful handout called the 5x9 morning method. This little thing is so simple, and your brain is going to tell you that these steps are too small. They don't count. They're not going to amount to anything. There are people in my community who started with this little pamphlet 2 or 3 years ago, and they have completely transformed their health over the past couple of years. And it started with this little handout right here and these little simple morning habits. So I will link to that freebie in the comments below. And if you're watching on your TV, someone told me that you may not be able to see the comments below. So I have a QR code, and I thought I would be fancy and try to share it. If you would like to grab that handout, if you can't grab the QR code, if you will open this YouTube video on my YouTube channel, hit subscribe while you're over there. If you find this valuable and you would like to get alerted to my next videos, give this little morning method a try. Implement some of these habits and see how it works for you. And don't freak out if you got on the scale today and it didn't say what you wanted it to, or it went up a couple of pounds over the weekend. I'll see you soon. Have a great week.